very, very different from the lifestyle that I now have. And a massive part of that was me massively pushing myself out of my comfort zones to get into the mountains.
Hi, welcome to Paths and Outdoors. My name's Davey Wright. Today we're at Fort William Mountain Festival and I'm going to speak to Brian Sharp from Mountain Wave Coaching, a running coach from the everyday athlete right up to the ultra athlete. So Brian, welcome.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm very well. So at Paths and Outdoors we like to talk to outdoor people and how they got to where they got to or where they are now. So if you give us just a bit of background about yourself, where you're from, how you get into the outdoors and your kind of journey to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm from central Scotland, just outside Stirling, and got into running from probably when I was about 25 maybe. My stepdad wanted to do the Three Peaks Challenge, and we kind of trained for it together. I had kind of no idea about any running and stuff like that. And we did the challenge, and then I guess I just caught the bug and I got really into it. I met a couple of people that were doing running and stuff like that, and then from there I just kept doing it, and then totally fell in love with being outside, running in the hills and stuff. And then
so prior to training for the National Three Peaks, I assume, what was your kind of outdoor exposure then, like either at school or kind of after that?
Well, kind of non-existent really, actually. I always liked the outdoors, but I guess I never really found my way to kind of access it until I got into running. So yeah, the first time I ever went to the Highlands was when I was maybe about 15, and with my uncle we used to do like roof slating. So we would come up to the Highlands to slate roofs on some of the islands as well, and that was definitely my first time leaving kind of like central Scotland. And I remember like travelling up north and just being kind of like amazed by all the mountains and stuff that you'd see. But I'm not a walker, and I've never been a hiker or anything like that.
And nobody in your family, like your uncle or your dad prior to that, no?
No, not really. I mean, we would go fishing and stuff like that, but not real kind of outdoorsy.
So your travel up and to for your slating, would that be the kind of seed, I would imagine, to wanting to be on the hills?
Yeah, well, certainly to just seeing the landscapes and falling in love with it. Training for this challenge, my stepfather was quite outdoorsy, and once we started training, and he would take me out to the hills, so the Ochil Hills, which is kind of local to where I lived, and then just really quickly I became just quite engrossed in being outside and the benefits of that. And then when we kind of finished training for this challenge, I found that I just kept running, and I would keep going to the local hills. So
did you run the Three Peaks? Was that the?
I failed, actually. I never did it. He did it.
Right.
He actually drove and did the challenge.
Okay. So how many was it, just the two of you? Or
just the two of us, yeah.
Okay.
So very low key. He drove the entire thing and completed it, and I never completed it. So when we were coming off Snowdon in Wales, he got down before me and he was back to the car, but yeah, I never made it. So a full 24 hours had elapsed and I still wasn't back at the car.
But you got through the full challenge, but just over 24 hours.
Yeah, it just took me longer than 24.
Okay. 4
hours. So
that's. I mean, I did it the Three Peaks a few years ago now, and we had a minibus and there was a team of 6 of us, but we had a driver.
Yeah.
I think he got the least sleep, if I'm honest, but that's a fair challenge to do and drive as well.
Yeah. So I mean, certainly at the time, I kind of like I still look up to him, but I was kind of like amazed by the fact that he'd driven it and done it, and I was just like, how do you do that? And I didn't have much exposure to that kind of that outdoor lifestyle, or certainly mountain running or ultra running. So I very quickly became quite obsessed with it, and then found out about people that were doing it. Athletes like Killian and stuff like that. I kind of became really interested and would follow their progress and watch the videos online and stuff. And then very quickly I kind of started thinking, well, maybe I could become a mountain runner, and it was this very like aspirational goal as someone who just had no background or history running whatsoever.
So following the you're about 25. You said following the challenge. What was your next kind of? What did you do then to try and get to that goal?
I found a race in Glen Nevis, and it was part of the Glencoe Marathon Gathering. So it was a 10k race, and I entered it just randomly, like wondering, well, I'll kind of like enter this race and see what happens. And I actually came second, and it surprised me so much. And I was so inexperienced at the time, I had no idea that there would even be like a prize ceremony or anything. I remember we finished the race in Glen Nevis, and then me and my stepdad, because he came and supported me, we started hiking up Ben Nevis because we were going to go hike up Ben Nevis after it. And then we could hear from the area that they were giving it a prize giving. And I was like, I wonder if I've maybe got something. And I went back and they did give me something. They gave me like a jacket.
Nice.
But I was just like, oh wow, that's quite interesting. And then, from that I just got really heavily into it, I guess. Connected with some local people back in Stirling that were doing running, and then I got involved in the local club there, which is the Local Hill Runners. And then from that it kind of just progressed. Snowballed, yeah. I did a couple of it was interesting because when I ran that race in Glen Nevis and I finished second, I was like, whoa, wow, this is it's actually easier than I thought it was. And then I ran my first fell race, and I think I was just about in the top 50 or something like that. And I was like, whoa, that's really hard, you know, like hardcore people that were.
What was the distance to your first fell race? Do you remember?
It was a really short one, 4 miles, I think, or something like that, up to Myatt and the Ochil Hills. But just super intense, you know, like incredibly steep climbs. But yeah, just totally caught the bug, and then the ability to then go and run in the hills and be outside just massively appealed to me. And I also quite like social media and taking pictures and sharing the story, and kind of quite quickly that became part of it all, was actually going and creating content and shooting pictures and stuff, and then sharing it. And then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, a lot of people would be quite interested in the pictures that I took, and I never ever really had anything in my life before where I was never ever successful at anything ever as kind of grown up. And then all of a sudden I had this thing that I did that people were interested in, and that massively then motivated me to.
Right. So that's interesting that other people's interest, although you have the interest in it and we're pushing that other people's interest kind of lifted that again. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, no, definitely.
And what then? Where is that now progressed to? What's the next stage of that? Like you've got the interest, you've got people who are now interested in following you. Yeah. What did you do with that?
I guess entered more races, became more exposed to the type of running that people could do, and then kind of created my own ideas of, well, maybe I could do that and this.
What were those ideas?
Well, very quickly you start thinking about ultramarathons and all this sort of stuff. I actually ran my first ultramarathon less than a year into just running completely. So I hadn't even been running a whole year, and then I did my first ultramarathon.
What was that?
That was the D33 in Aberdeen. So, so 33 miles along the River Dee, and it broke me. I remember like 7 miles in, stopping and having to like rub my shins. I kind of got plagued with shin splints and stuff in the beginning, which is quite similar to a lot of runners. But to go from like never running at all to then and like putting this massive load on your body.
A year on.
Exactly, yeah.
A year in.
And I was like, I just wanted to jump off stuff and like take cool pictures of it. I mean, that's just the reality of it, isn't it? And share it online, because I got so much stoke from doing that, and excitement. And then, you know, very quickly I was like, oh, I actually can't do that because it's absolutely agony. And then it got to the point where I was like getting out of bed in the morning, and when I was like, as soon as I stood up, I'd be really sore. So then I was like, well, actually I need to take this a bit more seriously and have a think about what I'm doing. And then I did a bit of research into it, and then got a coach involved that helped me. And that was the game changer in terms of me understanding what I was capable of, and like fitness and actual capability, and getting a coach involved that gave me a plan, because the plan that I got at the time, so this is a good few years back now, it was so radically different from any idea that I had in my head about what training should look like. And it just totally opened my eyes to this.
So what were the key differences to that? Run
slower, run easier, run more often but less intense. So I'd be like running 3 runs a week, but at quite a high intensity, and then like breaking my body, and then not being able to run the following week. So it was all, you know, like Strava. So I used Strava. Actually, quite interestingly, I've always used Strava. So because I never ran until about 6 years ago, the first run I ever logged was on Strava. So I have a complete full running life history on Strava, which is so interesting to look back at.
To see what the
Because
differences
you can
are,
see in the
improvements.
first year, it's like, whoa, it's like this, and then it's like this. And then the 2 years after, it's like this.
Right.
And then now it's kind of like
It's kind of plateaued
a
on.
bit of a line, yeah.
And how have you, what would you say was your biggest kind of learnings from that then, apart from the kind of running slower and less, where would you say your kind of key learnings from taking on a coach and taking on a plan? What would be the...
Taking care of your body, I guess.
Right.
And not getting too overexcited, and understanding that your goal is ahead of you, it's in the future, and what you do now will massively impact your ability to be successful at it. Okay. I think I always used to, again, it kind of goes back to that, I had never really found something that I was good at before or enjoyed as much, so I just wanted to do it as much as possible. And then the coaching kind of thing made me realise that I had to really be careful with what I did now in order to achieve this thing that was in the future.
Okay, so building it as sort of gradually, sort of building up to something.
Yeah, I'm not a very patient person, so maybe that's probably part of it.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
and the coaching sort of helped that patience, or
yeah, I think
kind of kept your feet on the ground a little bit.
Yeah, it gave me discipline. I think I was
Good.
severely lacking in discipline prior to that. You know, like some of the mates that I ran with, we would go do like a Monroe run, and it would be like a really long, intense day out. And I would never be one to complain about the fact that my legs were in agony or anything like that, and it would go longer and longer, and all of a sudden you're spending like up to like 8-9 hours outside running for like the whole day in all kinds of sorts of challenging weather and stuff. And then I had to really rein that in. I think to become the runner that I am today, I had to really like reshape the types of runs that I did and when I did them and how I did them.
Okay. So do you still run with other people then?
Yes, I now live in Glencoe, so I've now moved up north. So my friends that I would have ran with before are not as close anymore, so I don't run with them. I tend to run on my own. And then obviously COVID, you know, it's been sandwiched right in the middle of all that. So becoming a lone runner is probably quite common for most people, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with all the events that were cancelled over that time, like not being able to run with other people, and when some people would just find that's when they would come together, I would imagine. So now you have started your own kind of running coaching business called Mountain Wave.
Yep.
How did that come, or what has it taken to start that? What did you need to achieve to get that started?
Probably the biggest thing was just having confidence in my ability. I've put myself through some qualifications that have given me like the backup, I guess. But I think that I had kind of always been doing it. So social media, like I said before, it's quite a big platform for me, and I use it a lot, and I do get asked a lot about the runs that I do and the coaching, and I have kind of, in a kind of roundabout way, been giving out coaching advice to people for years now, I guess, on like routes to run, shoes to wear, all that sort of stuff. And the coaching was quite new, so it was never in my long-term plan to do run coaching. In my working life, so alongside all of this, I had quite a good office job in Edinburgh, and I'm in the middle of all this. So basically, becoming an outdoor person made me massively want to change my work life as well, and my work-life balance. So I quit my job.
Was that pre-COVID, or was that?
This was pre-COVID.
So
yeah,
that decision
2018.
had been. So 2018, you decided. You were going to shift your work-life balance.
Exactly. Actually, it's before then. It's a year before that. Sorry.
Okay.
So I quit my job and learned how to drive a bus, which is quite radically different. I'll never forget like sitting my test driving through Glasgow in this big huge bus, and I had quit my job because I'm like I said, I'm impatient. I'm kind of like I like to be it's not advice that I'd give anyone, but I like to motivate myself by putting myself in a really difficult situation. So yeah, I drove this bus and then passed my test, and then kind of like immediately when I got the job that I got doing tour guiding in Edinburgh, I got asked to do these like bespoke whiskey tours. So then all of a sudden, you know, in the space of a year, I went from like going into the office in Edinburgh, really not that happy, and definitely people in the office thought I was quite a strange character, because I'd be running up Arthur's Seat on my lunch break from Stockbridge, and then I'd come back and go into a meeting and I was like sweaty and stuff. And I don't think I fitted in quite well.
Well, that's all right. Yeah, I've been to a few different places, and I've always found that things like the Fort William Mountain Festival and other mountain festivals I've been to, that you find your, as one person I know described it, your tribe. And then you say, oh, I do this at lunchtime, and they go, oh, yeah, cool, yeah, magic. Whereas there's other people that aren't really into it, as it were, and that they go, oh, that's a bit weird. Yeah. Like half my family think half the stuff I do is weird. But that's okay, and I don't mind.
Yeah. No, so that resonates, definitely. Yeah. And then, I was doing these whiskey tours and going to Ireland, going to Speyside and stuff. And I was just like amazed at the fact that I could do this as a job. And very selfishly, when I first thought about being a tour guide, it was genuinely because I thought, because I love Scotland, right? I love travelling all around Scotland. I thought, this is a way for me to travel on my, like I can travel this way, and I'll just take some people with me, because I'm not actually naturally a really confident type of person. I certainly wasn't back then. I'm much more confident now, probably through doing this.
That's helped.
Yeah, so that was so like far out my comfort zone. I remember like when I first did the bus tours, and it'd be like 30 people behind me, and I'd be like shaking on this bus, you know, having to like deliver a tour. Yeah. But the passion for Scotland always came through, and I was genuine about it. So what ended up happening is I kind of found this little niche in the tour guiding that I did, and I would take people, whenever I took people to here in Fort William, you know, I would want to like get off the bus with them and actually show them places in the high street, you know, the best places to get coffee and stuff like that. I wouldn't just like take them to, you know, a single stop that benefited me because I could take a break or something like that. So I find I was a tourist as much as people, and lots of the reviews that I got, that was kind of generally the vibe. So I loved it. And then, so anyway, to go back to the coaching, because we went off there. Sorry. So I was, just before COVID happened, I quit my tour guide job and I started doing tours on my own. And I was taking people on short walks up Connacht Hill in Loch Lomond, living in Glasgow at the time. And I'd give them a whiskey at the summit and stuff like that. And it was all good fun, and people really loved it. And then I got lots of work that summer, and then COVID happened. And then we lived in Glasgow at the time, and that's how we ended up moving here to the Highlands to live with my partner's family, who kindly took us in.
No lost puppies.
Yeah. So the last 2 years we've been living here, and I've been working with my partner's family business, right. Which is a local business in Ballygoolish. It's called Woodlands Glencoe. And they've got amazing accommodation there, and they've got this amazing activity centre. They do Segway tours and canal stuff like that. So I was managing that for them, doing the tours, super fun. But obviously, once you kind of have this idea of kind of going on your own, I don't think that doesn't really leave you, does it? So I was going to do my own tours again, experiential tourism. I'm really switched on in terms of like providing kind of quirky trips. I'm a massive coffee fan. Anyone that knows me really well will associate.
Hugging one there.
Yeah. So it's a big part of my life, and I want to like take people out into the hills and like make them coffee and stuff like that. And then someone just kind of said to me, "Have you never thought about doing coaching?" And I kind of was like, "Oh, actually, that I've not," but that kind of makes sense. And I did a bit of research into it, because I kind of thought you would have needed like a lot of qualifications for it, but actually I found, I looked up some people that were doing it and couldn't really find any qualifications, so I was a bit interested as to what
the background was, what the competency was.
Exactly. And I'd got a coach to help me last year, because I was kind of struggling with my own running. And when I thought about it, why did I get a coach? It wasn't because I needed to know how to run better, it was because I needed someone to make me accountable. And the coach that I used, this really lovely lady from Aberdeen, she like massively improved my running just by making me accountable for it, for the workouts that we did. And then I had a bit of success last year, and then it just totally made sense. Mountain Wave was like my Instagram handle for a while, and Mountain Wave is something that resonates with me because I spend quite a lot of time, whether I'm like walking the dog in the morning or whether I'm on the mountains running. A lot of the time when you're on the west coast of Scotland, you can see the ocean, but you can also see mountains as well. And I've spent a lot of time, just like standing, like looking at the ocean, thinking about the mountains beyond and how I'd like to go there. And I don't know, the name just kind of made sense in my head, I guess, Mountain Wave.
So, as you were talking there about being in the mountains and having the sea, and it looked like it, obviously, and you mentioned the word resonate. How does that help you as a person?
Oh, massively, like humongously. I had definitely quite a tough upbringing, and it's very, very different from the lifestyle that I now have. And a massive part of that was me like massively pushing myself out of my comfort zones to get into the mountains and to get into running, and the mental health benefits are just phenomenal, really, for getting outside and getting running. And
so you mentioned obviously a tough upbringing, and I think that's quite a common thing, and probably one of the reasons why I started this podcast to talk to people, because I'm interested to where they've come from, where the beginnings were, and what that was, and how that's manifested it to where you are now. And I'm not going to ask you to delve into your childhood in that, but I think it is quite a common thing that your how to describe it? I've kind of gone off my own tangent. You found something to help you out of a tough situation or through into a better situation, which is where you seem to have found yourself now.
Yeah, definitely.
And what do you think was the catalyst for that then? Was it I've gone on this 3 peak challenges coming up, I've looked at the mountains when I was younger, and that might be a good idea, or where do you think that catalyst came from to push yourself out of your comfort zone?
I guess if I was to be completely genuine, from a selfish point of view, the desire to actually like achieve something massively appealed to me. And like I kind of said before, I had never really been good at anything in my past. And I guess like when you're like kind of from a small town, but actually in quite a big area, but anyway, like I never left school with like any super qualifications or anything like that, or any real aspirations, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with life. So when I found this thing that I was quite good at, I just like clung on to it for dear life, I guess. And it absolutely gave me purpose and meaning. It gave me meaning, I would probably say more than purpose, because I had never ever felt like I had anything to give before, I think.
So what's then if that's giving you the meaning, what's the purpose? It's deep, isn't it?
Super deep, man. Well, the purpose now is different from what it was back then. Okay. So I think the purpose now is definitely to use this platform that I have almost effectively kind of created for myself. To use this platform to, now that I'm a bit older and a bit more accomplished with running, and I definitely understand where I'm at in life, and I'm happy and fine. I think that my purpose is, through Mountain Wave coaching, is definitely to show people that you don't have to, there's no preconceived idea of what your skills have to be like in order for you to do these types of outdoor endeavours, if you like. The outdoors is absolutely accessible to everyone, and that's not just no matter what your background is or where you come from or whatever, and the benefits to actually going outdoors and being outside and running particularly, is just phenomenal, and it will change your life, in probably quite a positive way. So if I can provide a platform that shows people that the benefits of being outside, then I think that's just amazing. Whilst also inspiring people through the content that I create. I love sharing videos, and I love thinking up ideas of really cool content to make from the runs that I do, and when I put that online and the reactions that people give me, and they're so inspired by what I'm doing, which actually in the grand scale of things, right, in the world sense, it's quite mediocre. There's some people doing some pretty cool stuff. I'm inspired by, we're all inspired by someone, aren't we? But I just find it so unbelievably fulfilling to be able to potentially inspire other people to do what I've done.
So you mentioned being inspired by people, and earlier on you mentioned Kelly Jolly. Who else inspires you or gives you that kind of focus or carrot, I suppose, to go and do stuff? Who has inspired you to do stuff?
Wow.
And that's not just athletes, but people in your peer group or or maybe mentors.
Yeah. So many people. It's interesting because when you put it on the spot like that, it's quite hard to just be like, isn't it? One person that does spring to mind is, so there's definitely someone that I ran with in the Oakville Hill Runners, so the group that I used to run with. And we still stay in contact today, and we don't run as much anymore because we live so far away from each other. But my friend John from the club that I ran for, he used to always give me so much advice, and he would stay in contact with me, and he would give me books on mountain leading and stuff like that. And he was like this unbelievable fountain of knowledge, about like the Bob Graham round in England and stuff like that. I never knew anything about any of that until this. We would be going like on a mountain run, so we'd be spending 2 hours in the car with each other, and he would be telling me all these stories about fell running, and it just used to it just blow my mind really. And he would, because it's interesting, because today we live in a world where it's so easy to share what you do. We do it subconsciously now, don't we? It's like Instagram stories and all this TikTok and stuff. And I almost think like it's easy to forget, or it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that it's quite new that people are doing amazing things, but people have been doing amazing things for a long time, and it's just that 50 years ago they couldn't talk about it or share it in the same way. And quite often in the fell running or mountain running world here in Britain, I'll hear about stories of people that have done just the most unbelievable things, and they didn't even tell anyone. They just went and did it, And I think just staying humble to that, I just find really inspiring. So anyway, my friend John, we would go and run and do these crazy stuff, and that just massively inspired me to keep going and doing it, I guess.
So more recently, you mentioned through your coach from Lady from Aberdeen, you had some successes last year. What would they be? Yeah,
so she helped me get a PB in a race that I'd ran. I always get confused with years now. I always want to say the year before, but really that's kind of like 3 years before, isn't it? It's like, I don't want to keep mentioning the COVID world, but it's like, well, I don't even know what year it is anymore. Mm-hmm. So she helped me get like over an hour's PB. So there's a race in England in the Lake District, Scafell Pike Trail Marathon. Mm-hmm. I'd ran that, and then she gave me a specific training program for that race, and I was like nearly an hour faster, which I wouldn't, not to take anything away from the training, but it wasn't just the training, it was also the fact that I had been investing in my own time, and I had already been training really hard. But again, she gave me the plan that made me disciplined to then, and I was race ready because of her plan, and it worked. So I got this amazing PB at this race. There was a race in Aberdeen that I went and ran, and I came 3rd place, and it was against like a couple of local runners that just knew the area so unbelievably well, and I think the guy in 2nd place, who was only about 10 seconds ahead of me, the last part was super undulating, and he just was able to judge the little undulations better than me because he knew it like the back of his hand, I guess. So some successes. I also had some failures though, and generally I'm not known for my organisational skills. So I'm very bad for, or I have been very bad for like not doing enough preparation and like just turning up and seeing what happens. I'll give you an example. I ran my first 50-mile race, was the Muddy Coast 50 miler. I think it was in May last year, and I kind of thought, well, it's just along the coast, so it's just along the coast. You've got the sea on one side, so as long as you follow the ocean, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I knew what the elevation was going to be like. I certainly knew what the distance was, so I kind of knew those parameters and I came to terms with like that and what it would be like to run 50 miles. I had ran already 50 miles before, and I just wore the wrong shoes. So I wore these like road shoes that had carbon plate in them, because I had read that a lot of it was on road, and I've kind of thought I value the road running over the trails because I can move a bit faster on road. I'm a mountain runner that loves running on road. I'm very anti. I'm such a strange mountain runner. So I wore these, and then what happened was the toe box was so small, and after about 34 miles, I'd like cracked my toenails. So like my big toenails. This sounds a bit horrible. I'm not sure if you're going to share this, but you're probably like, this is. So I'd kind of like cracked the nail bed on like both feet, and it was excruciating. At mile 25, I had to get my partner to change my shoes. So I stopped and changed my shoes, and I was in the lead. I was winning. And then from mile 25 onwards, I remember running along this stretch of beach at Lossiemouth, and it was just the most brutal thing I've ever done. I'm sure it was at Lossiemouth, just beyond Lossiemouth actually, but it was like this really kind of pebbly but really just brutal beach. Ran along it and my toes were absolutely gubbed in. At about mile 34, I had to stop, and then sat down and cried a wee bit.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed, because I knew that I was capable of winning it, and I knew I was capable of running it in quite a good time. And for about 10 solid miles, I'd been running with like excruciating pain in my toes, and then I eventually gave in and stopped. But I was winning, and I was well on target for the time that I wanted to run, and I was fit enough to do it. So I just felt.
So what was that? What was the learnings from that shoe choice, or
just prepare? We turned up. We drove like the night before. We got there at like 10 p.m. and I'm quite bad for saying I'll sleep in the back of my car, and like I'd forgotten coffee. So like and we'd forgotten a spoon as well. I had to eat my porridge with like the lid of a like a plastic lid from a box. Anyway, wasn't as prepared as I should have been.
Okay. Why do you think you didn't prepare?
Because it sounds horrible, but I probably just never valued the. Headed probably thought it was going to be okay. Thought I'd managed to get through it. Kind of thought it's going to just be following the coast. Didn't think that the terrain would be anything that I had never handled or done before. But it totally caught me off. There was a couple of sections as well where you were actually running on beach.
Energy sapping.
Yeah, very energy sapping. I did know there was beach, but I didn't realise it was going to be like as sandy as it is. That sounds horrible. People watching that are going to think, you didn't think the beach was going to be sandy, Brian. I'm digging myself into a massive hole here. I never prepared. And my partner was, she always tells me to prepare. It's not like I'm not warned about it.
Your manager.
Yeah. Shit. Yeah.
So you're going to go back to do it again?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
So now we're at mountain wave coaching starting, or has started, and you developed that. And
I've not really sold that well there, have I?
Well, we can talk about it now. That's what it's for.
I'm more prepared now.
No, you take the learnings from those failures. That's what failures are for.
Yeah.
So you started Mountain Wave. You sat there in your Rab jacket. You're a Rab sponsored athlete as well. So you've also gained some what's what I'm looking for? Notoriety. He's got some kudos in the industry.
Yeah.
So what's Mountain Wave coaching going to do now?
Help runners with their goals. So I'm super lucky that I do have this platform that I guess I've been working on over the years of Brian on social media. People have always followed the races that I've done and stuff, and it certainly wasn't. I had quite a lot of interest initially, which I'm just so unbelievably thankful for. And the goals that people have, are all things that have been a goal at one point in my life that I've then overcame. So helping people achieve something, I think, will just be the most phenomenal feeling. Knowing what I went through to go from overcoming injury, never having ran ever, to then getting to the point where I could win an ultra marathon. Knowing that I could do that gives me such a great, I guess, ability to help other people with goals like that. And I think that a lot of people, you know, if you said to me certainly 6-7 years ago, you in 3 years' time you're going to win an ultra marathon, I wouldn't have even known what an ultra marathon was. But it sounds pretty tough, you know. How do you do that? And yeah, the discipline and like total commitment to training that I had, you know, was just phenomenal. And if I can help other people understand that they can do anything they want to do by applying these kind of basic rules, then that would be amazing. So mountain wave coaching, I guess. I also want to do some trail running camps. So in Glencoe, I want to bring people together to enjoy guided trail runs. So obviously my background of being a tour guide kind of puts me in this really good position where, you know, I can also coach people, but I can also guide people as well. So in the mountains, I've ran most of the sky running events in the UK, and certainly know Glencoe incredibly well. So I'd love to bring people to the area, help people understand the responsibilities as people that go out running outside. I want to bring local businesses together to be part of this product, this trail running camp product, by leading on safety talks, providing, I guess, history and knowledge of the area, and just bringing people to be inspired by the mountains, and then also film it and add my own little quirky taste for the kind of social media side of things, and just try and create this really amazing product, because there's quite a lot of trail running camps happening in the UK right now, but I don't think there's any quite like what I have in my head in Glencoe, you know, in terms of like really bringing local businesses that absolutely, you know, live in the Glen every single day together to deliver this really exceptional product that will bring the right type of tourist customer to the area, that will have a respect for it when they come, stay for longer, and then, you know, come back hopefully, I guess. So I'm very switched on with tourism and the right type of tourism, and wanting to bring really like benefit the area that I live in with the coaching stuff as well. So there's lots of plans. I also want to do my own races as well, so mountain wave races. I've been speaking to landowners locally about setting up races. So yeah, so
big plans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very exciting. Yeah, sounds good. I'll
Thanks.
definitely get up there if there's a training camp on or something. We'll come up and we'll bring the podcast there as well.
Nice.
So I suppose it's just a case of now you just putting that plan into place, and you seem like a pretty focused person to make that happen.
It's coffee.
It's coffee. It's caffeine. Caffeine does it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Well, Brian, we before we met, literally before this started, I didn't know anything about you, but I feel like you've covered a lot of ground there, and it's been really good to hear your story.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you, seeing it sort of flourish, and we'll hopefully in the future we'll catch up and see where it took you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
No, thanks so much, Brian. Cheers.
You're welcome.
Well, that's been Passing Outdoors with Brian from Mountain Wave Training Coaching, and we'll see you again next time.